Hello guys and welcome to this new YouTube video. In this video we are going to look at opposite colored bishop endgame with 2 pawns against none. So let's go straight to it and watch the first one I put on the board. In this endgame it's important to see there is just one file gap between the 2 pawns, and most of the time, since the king and the bishop can combine their power to stop the pawns, they are drawn. So let's see how it goes. King g6 played to help the f pawn. Bishop a2 just waiting. F5, bishop b3 waiting, a waiting move again. F6. So now we need to stop this f pawn from queening, from promoting. So we go king e8, defending 2 times the f7 square. And here is the perfect example. Black will easily protect really the f7 and the d7 square. As you see, the bishop just need to move to a4 in order to defend the second time the d7 square if it's needed. So white can try to play king f5, king e5, king d4, king c5, but here black can just even easily stop this maneuver with king d7, protecting the c6 square and still guarding the f7 pawn, the f6 pawn with the bishop on a2. So this was fairly easy. Let's go to our next example. It's the same position, just I added up the pawn on b4 and b5, and this is going to change a lot of things. So bishop a2, f5, bishop b3, f6, king e8, and here we have the exact same position as we had on the previous example. But because of those pawns on b4 and b5, white can play d7, king has to take, f7, bishop take, king takes, and now white is just going to win the b5 pawn and win this endgame. So those 2 pawns are really making a difference in this one, so white was winning. Let's go to our third example, and now we are going to see the 2 file gap. And there is a very important rule in the 2 file gap which you are seeing appearing now on your right. With the separate pawns, it's really simple. The strongest side should go with the king, helping the pawn that is defended by the bishop, which means the f5 pawn here. So the king will help the f5 pawn, and they will finally get through. So bishop f3 to protect the pawn on c6, with the idea to play king e6 and f6. King d8, king e6, so threatening f6 logical. Bishop b4, f6, bishop a5, switching with the bishop to the c pawn, f7, bishop b4, and in fact you cannot stop it. King f6, bishop c3, so the king is coming by h7, g8, g7, and black can't stop it. So this is in fact pretty easy. You just need to go with the pawn that is defended by the bishop. So let's go to our next example with the 2 file gap again, but here the 2 pawns are on the same diagonal, so the bishop and the king can work together, stopping the pawn and making kind of a fortress, avoiding the king from passing. So king b5, king d7, king a6, so trying to support the pawn to play b7, king c8. So here the bishop can easily, I mean not easily, but he's defending the 2 important square on e4 and b7. So the king is going backward, but the black king is just following it. So king c5 with the idea to play king d4 and e4, king e6, king d4 and king d5, and white can never pass through this nice duo of the king and the bishop. So usually when there are 2 file gap between the pawns, but the bishop can stop the pawns on one diagonal, the endgames are drawn. I mean, most of the time the endgames are drawn. And so we go to our last example for today, when there's 3 file gaps. And here, even if the pawns are on the same diagonal, white is not quite on time black is not quite on time, sorry, to stop the pawn. So bishop d5. Here is the first move for white, with the idea to go king d4, king e4, and f4. So the pawns will finally be on two different diagonal. King b8, king c4. Yeah, because after king d4 you would lose to bishop f2. So going slowly. Bishop f2, b7, pushing the pawn, bishop g3, and you cannot do really anything to stop this maneuver. So now we can push the pawn on f4, and we are just going to push it further and further. And it's even easier than with 2-5 gap, because now the bishop is overloaded. He needs to cover the b8 and the f6 square at the same time. He of course can't do that. And so white is pushing the pawns, and now, as we saw the rule at a bit earlier in the video, the white king is just going to go toward the pawn defended by the bishop in order to queen it. So bishop e5, king f5, king e6, and you really can't do anything. The king is just marching, the queen is done, and the game is over, 1-0. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will upload more video about the opposite colored bishop endgame. That was some basics. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.